Hello and welcome to the broadcast today. My name is David Kain. I'm the president of Kain Automotive, and I've got a special guest today from the front lines of the automotive coronavirus outbreak over in Italy, Mr. Marco Marlia from MotorK.io. And to give the U.S. Listeners kind of an orientation to this, MotorK is the equivalent to what we would know as Cox Automotive over in Europe. And I'll let Marco tell a little bit more about what his company does and what the impact is. So Marco, I'm going to let you introduce yourself to the audience, and if you'd be so kind as to tell us a little bit about yourself, your company, and the lockdown there in Italy.
Well, David, first of all, thanks for inviting me. And ciao, everyone. Sorry for my Italian accent. I hope you can understand me well. So I like the comparison with Cox Automotive, but maybe it's a little bit too much. MotorK, we are like 300 people. We started in Italy, now we are all across Europe. Now we are in lockdown all across Europe, and we provide software service technology to car dealers, so dealer websites, CRM, lead management system, and so on and so forth. And I'm in Milan, which is the one of Europe, is the center, unfortunately, of this crisis. As you know, Northern Italy was the first place where the virus spread out of China, so unfortunately we are in lockdown since a few weeks now.
So Marco, tell us a little bit about what it was like when they first announced the northern Italian lockdown, and then how quickly they moved to the whole country. So,
I mean, it's been a little bit strange at the beginning because the first few days, we thought it was, not really a huge impact. Life was going as usual. And then in really a few days, like less than a week, the numbers exploded. And first day lockdown, only a few counties in the northern region. And then after a week, it started to spread near east of Milan, Bergamo, Brescia, and so on, which are the areas that are more hit at the moment. And then they went rapidly to lockdown of all the northern Italy. And what happened is that the lockdown of northern Italy, the day they did it, people started to flee and went away and went to southern Italy. So immediately they had to lock down all the country, because they were scared that the virus would spread dramatically all across the country. Closing the country actually has have had a relatively positive impact to mitigate the spread. Right now, in fact, still the virus is mostly spread in northern Italy, which is also, northern Italy has a better health system overall compared to southern Italy. And so the southern region is still somehow protected. So we are still lucky that the virus is not spread all across the country.
Okay. So it goes without saying, we're starting to become quite familiar with a lot of what you have gone through. You all were very much 3 or 4 weeks ahead of us with respect to the impact. Can you share a little bit about the initial reaction from the automotive community, from the OEM perspective, if you've talked to some of those companies, and then most certainly who you are most familiar with, the automotive retail dealers?
Sure. What we have seen is that the minute the lockdown was announced, the OEM were the ones to freeze first, if you prefer. So they went a little bit in panic because there is no playbook to face this challenge, and so in the moment of panic, they froze all the advertising, apart from the one that was already running on TV. But most of the digital they stopped. while I have to say the dealers went in a little bit of 50-50. So some of them, they stopped completely, and some of them instead they kept the campaigns on. What happened is that we saw, probably similar to what you see over there right now, is that traffic did not collapse overnight, because actually people that are in lockdown, they, like us, they're in front of the computer all the day. And so what we did as MotorK, we did immediately a survey to all the customers that were requesting quotes or something, or generating leads, asking a few simple questions. One, why are you generating a lead right now? You know that everything is closed, okay? Two, so you expect get back in touch in reality with the dealer in a few weeks, hopefully. And three, what is the time frame for you to buy the car? What we understood is that actually people were fully aware of the situation, as you can imagine. And what they're doing is simply they're, spending some time and trying now to, take advantage of the time in front of the computer to research now for a purchase they're going to make later. What we did is we disclosed this survey for a few thousand people to our customers, to the dealers, to the industry. And gradually, I have to say, now I see more OEMs and more dealers that are starting to launch the campaigns again. Also because since the demand was not, going down dramatically, but instead the advertising went down really quick, the acquisition cost was much better. And so the conversation that is now happening in Italy, and I see the pattern of this topic also be discussed in the other countries that are slightly later in the curve, is, look, even if I invest some money, since I buy 20-30% better the leads, even if not all of them are really interested when the lockdown will be over, it's still a smart move to buy now. The other conversation, which is now quite consensus, is that the minute we will reopen, I don't know if you looking at the news, but Italy is in now almost a week in a row of numbers lucky enough going down. So we are starting to have talks about when the reopening is going to be. Probably it's going to be partially in April, but mostly in May. There is consensus that after the reopening, still there will be protection for some group of people, people above a certain age. In any case, we're not going to go back to normal instantly. So the patterns of going out, doing meetings and so on, will probably take some time to go back to a normal level. And so we all feel that the advertising will flock to the internet. And so the price in reality will go probably dramatically up. So the cost of leads we expect to be up significantly after we start to go back to normal. And so dealers now, they understand that they are investing a little bit more to create some buffer, if you want, to be nurtured, to be taken care of while they wait for the lockdown to be over.
So, Marco, really interesting perspective there. The other day when you and I were talking, you said that the OEMs, instead of going to the consumers with some incentive programs, their immediate reaction was to make sure that the dealers were rock solid and would be able to reopen, and to protect, from a financial standpoint, their dealer body so that they were able to hold their position in the marketplace. Can you share a little bit about that versus what you might have seen from the United States OEMs that immediately went to 0% and delayed payments and such?
Yes. So what happened is that I don't know if this is specific for the European distribution network, which is mostly, dealers that are not huge. Okay. Most of the dealers are average in size, and so maybe they have a capital structure that is not ready to support a lockdown for 2 months or 3 months. But what the OEMs did first thing first is remove all the invoices for cars, advertising, merchandising, they didn't ask any money to the dealers to try to support them in a moment where their cash flow went basically to zero. Almost all across Europe, the dealers are closed by state order. The only thing that is open is the after sales for critical repairs for ambulances or police cars or doctors, critical stuff, only critical stuff. So their revenues basically went to zero. Bear in mind that here digital retailing is not so common. So the dealers are not doing significantly contracts remotely and so on. And so the OEMs went to protect the stability of the network. At the moment, I don't see yet significant promotions like 0% or buy now, pay in September, pay in January. Probably because the OEMs are really struggling to have the dealers still in touch with the customers. So it seems meaningless to offer a promotion where the dealer is not going to be able to sign a contract with the customer at the moment. Still, I see in April now some movement, some OEMs that are starting finally to approach the market because we are talking about reopening, in a few weeks from now.
So the OEM plants, do you all mostly make your products in the country of Italy, or is it a heavy import market of products from other countries?
Factory. So I can give you an answer for most of Europe. Factories in Italy, not that much. Okay. So mostly is important. Germany, as you can imagine, as a production of a certain kind of brands. In Spain, you have a little bit more, but Italy, the product is mostly imported. You have a little bit of production from FTA, and that's it.
So any, I guess probably a guess or a prognostication. In the U.S., we're starting to see the OEMs are shutting down factories for a safety standpoint and making sure that that's taken care of and the workers are protected. And we're predicting some crunch when the market does come back of availability. Normally January, February, we have high availability because the plants are churning out and we're waiting for the spring market. Any opinion as to whether or not you all will have any availability shortage with factories shutting down production?
So at the moment, most of the factories, as you can imagine, are shut, okay, in most of the countries here in Europe. And so we discussed it recently with some other industry experts, and I would say we really depend on the brand. So some OEMs, they had a significant amount of working capital, so cars in central location, or the dealers were also very stocked, and of course they know that kind of brands will have stock available. Other brands, other models will present a significant issue. I was talking with again some experts from the industry. OEMs are already planning, I don't know, to ship in a fast way the engines that will not be available as soon as the market reopens. There is the feeling, hopefully, that as soon as the market will be open again, everybody will try to push as much as possible to gain a little bit of market share, because similar crisis, other crises in Europe, like the one that was in Russia, there is now knowledge that the OEMs that were not ready to push, at the end they lost a little bit of market share. So the feeling is that Q2 will be struggling, will be difficult, but hopefully after September the industry will double down and try to regain what we have lost.
So if you could tell me a little bit about the makeup of the dealer body. Are most of the dealers family owned, or are they or I guess probably more of a corporate structure? What's the makeup there of ownership?
So if we talk about franchise dealers, I would say there is a trend of dealers growing in size by acquisition. Still, the number of mega dealers, you have some sizable dealers, mega dealers in the UK. France is a place where consolidation has happened recently. Spain, Italy, and Germany, still not much. The rest of the countries, not at all. So the average dealer still is a dealer that has, 2-3 rooftops. Dealers with dozens or 50 rooftops are still rare. Okay. So most of the dealers are still, family owned. Probably in these years there is the transition to become more and more corporate managed and so on.
Do you have any prediction on whether or not dealers will end up closing, or do you think the actions by the factories have been good enough to stabilize the dealer body?
So first of all, I have no way to predict anything in this market. We really live day by day, and we watch the news to see the count of people that are sick, and I really have no way to answer. I think it will really depend on the timeline. So if and for here, Italy is the indicator of the roadmap for more or less all the countries in Europe. So they are on the same curve with some delay. So if I'll give you two extreme examples. If Italy opens up end of April for critical activities, or mid-end of April for critical activities, and then in milestones in May we mostly go back to normal circulation, and you don't have a bounce back, but you have a controlled amount of cases, then I think most of the dealers, if not all, most of the dealers will open again, and we'll go back to a situation with probably less than 10% impact. Not in car sold, in dealers that survive. In car sold, the impact is already more than this. Okay. Instead, if we go in another scenario where we try to open up, the number of cases bounces back, and we go back and forth in open and close all the way through the summer until September, these will probably have two effects. First, more dealers will be impacted, and my feeling is that the OEM will let some of them go and try to keep the others, the 80-20 case. But you will have second order effects. So people, the unemployment, the capability of people to purchase the car will be impacted, because they will go in layoffs or temporary layoffs for so much time that they will not actually go back and buy a car. And so we will be in a market will be small enough that will not be able to sustain the dealer network. So in that case, it could be that we will see many dealers not opening, or going out of business.
Wow,
so it's a very difficult situation. Very difficult situation. Very difficult to predict.
Most definitely. So in the U.S., as you were able to watch, and my guess is you've had plenty of time in front of the TV or on online news with your lockdown status. I know this because you shared with me earlier. What's it like to have? Tell me how many people are living in your home there, and your animal situation.
So first of all, I tell you, I try not to watch news that much, because the first 1, 2, 3 days, I was almost compulsively trying to search for news. Now I'm trying to do the opposite. So I, watch a little bit, but otherwise I understood that my mind will, be completely absorbed by this. Instead, I try to be focused on the business, on also my family. I'm in lockdown with 3 kids, 2 cats, 1 dog. It's a disaster. So I have to say that I think after a few days of lockdown, you try to really do a media mix for your brain. You know what I mean? Sorry, I answered the news part, but I forgot the question in the meanwhile. Can you repeat the question?
Yeah. So how do you, as a family unit, kind of balance things? And I noticed
Okay.
no children have come into the picture behind you or anything like that. Did you put them in the room and tie them down?
No, one is playing Fortnite. One is watching Netflix. I went in the other room and said, I'm online with the US. Please don't come into the room. But already happened in one of the board calls with investors. The one of the kids knocked at the door and hello. Well, you know, it's crazy because it's you know, it doesn't seem real to stay at home for so much time. And I have to say, depending on your attitude, some families are so scared that they just try to order Amazon. They don't go out of the door. We have a small space in front of the house, so we try sometimes, you know, to take a walk of some minutes. But actually, you have to have an official authorization to, unless you're going to buy grocery, one person a day, once a day, or you're going to the pharmacy, or you have a special authorization. In theory, they can give you a fine. They can, you know, you can pay up to 3,000 euros, which is more or less more than $3,000. So you stay at home. You know, you play Monopoly. They try to study. All the schools are closed. Actually, this is a meaningful impact. If you think that schools will be closed here, you know, probably somebody says until the end of the school year. So they've lost 3 months, 4 months of school.
So I guess probably if you were to give you know, some hope to U.S.-based dealers who might be listening to the broadcast, and I know you haven't even started to pay attention to the comeback so much, but you are looking at consumer behavior online and such. We have obviously, and I'll send you a link to one of the companies here in the U.S. that for free is providing some market data, and you can go to New York and see that it, you know, very dramatic decline, and you're not even seeing any shopping activity to a large degree. In my hometown of Lexington, Kentucky, there is actually pretty good activity, and surprisingly, people can still come out and buy cars at the curbside or do home delivery. So we've got a real patchwork of models in the U.S. And ironically, North and South Dakota, Nebraska, Iowa, and Missouri still have not done statewide shutdowns. So we've got a real interesting diversity that is taking place of business models, and some of the dealers are able to do sales, and some of the dealers are not able to do sales. So dealers are trying to market their way through it. They're trying to protect their team and hold. We've had a bunch of furloughed employees, and as you saw in the news, we passed a real big stimulus bill. But even this week, 6 million plus people applied for unemployment. There's still a lot of chaos that is taking place. So any guidance from someone who is closing in on, you know, where you're just starting to see a gradual decline, anything you'd like to share to provide a little hope? So from Italy with hope.
So I don't know if I can bring hope. I can bring some maybe ideas to try to make the best use out of this critical situation, if you want. I'll give you one example. When the lockdown happened, no dealers were prepared for it. So actually, the first few days it was a disaster. I need a chat on my website. How do I do? People were, you know, locked down at home. They didn't have access, not even to phones, or, you know, phones were not redirected because it happened, you know, nighttime for the morning after. That's it. Okay. So first thing that I suggest to all the dealers that are not yet in lockdown, be prepared. Okay, already imagine what you need, what your team will need, how they will stay in touch if they will be working remotely, if you use Slack, Hangouts, or anything else, because the first few days were wasted to try to have the tools available. Okay. The second thing that I can say, again, I don't know if this will bring so much hope, but at least is a data point, is that after the first 1 or 2 weeks of lockdown, people almost get used, to the situation, and they started to think, okay, sooner or later we are going to get out of this, and I have to carry on with my life. And that was the moment when the traffic started to, maybe not go back to a normal level, but good enough for the dealers to start to receive some leads. They could stay in touch with those leads, nurture them, hopefully, to have some fuel to start the engine again when they will be ready. I think that more or less the learnings that have been made here, I see with some differences, all the countries going in the same direction. So social distancing, testing, I'm not an expert, but I see the pattern like anyone else. I have to say, maybe it's not what you expect from me, but there are also bad news that are coming from Italy that maybe are not yet there. For example, we were commenting this, there is an English article on The Economist that picks up this piece of information from Italy. Apparently, we've been underreporting the number of people affected all across Europe and probably all across the world that die from coronavirus, but at least 50%. Because it seems that many people, unfortunately, never get to the hospital, and they die at home, they die, outside of the hospital, so never get tested. And they have done an analysis of 1,000 counties in Italy, which is 15% of the territory, if you consider that the virus is mostly spread in the north. And there is a mortality rate which was 5 times the normal one, and only less than half of it was explained by coronavirus tested death. So on the good news, the numbers going down. We plan to have a zero contagion moment around the end of April, early May. So hopefully, all the countries are going to get on the same curve sooner or later. So there is a way out. I was one of the few that thought, oh, come on, this is only a flu. Now I have to say that probably my opinion is recently changing. So now that I know people that are affected, friends of friends that, passed away, I have to say that I'm a bit more quiet in saying what will happen or how we are going to get out of it. So I don't know if I'm bringing hope, but at least I'm bringing, reality and data.
Yeah. Well, and I think what you're going through is something that is you're our future, and I think we need to pay real close attention to how things happen there. I've talked to several colleagues, and almost to a person, they've said, "Why didn't we shut everything down together? We could have contained it quicker. We would have dipped at the same time and been ready to come back." But as you can tell, we had New York, Louisiana, California, Washington, and so almost the pieces of the country, and now it's working into the central part. And I think when it hits hometown America in so many places, there's going to be a lot of interesting things. But in every situation, there's always the emergence of good news and surprises. So if you could tell us any bit of good news or surprise that really kind of caught you off guard from this.
Well, look, first of all, the fact that the consumers were still there and they were still interested, I think is a significant data point. It's a significant positive news. So it means that even in such a crisis, people are still willing and interested to, buy a car. And there is a study made by Ipsos in China. I don't know if it made the news already there, where people that went out of the lockdown, actually they have now a very high preference for the mobility choices for private cars and less for public transportation. So if you want a piece of news which is positive for the industry, is that after the crisis, people will look at their car as a very safe environment, and so maybe there is a little bit of hope that when things go back, they will be interested in buying a car, or very attached to it.
Well, and something that we're experiencing here, I'm in my 17th day of lockdown here in the East Bay of California, and getting to spend time with my wife. We've been married 35 years and, been together 40 years. And for us, because I travel a lot, that, and to be able to spend time with her and actually have good conversations, we formed a good routine. I will tell you, we've got a lot of sorrow in the U.S. for what's going on in Italy in particular. I think, as you can imagine, we have a large Italian population here in the U.S. That have always made up the fabric of what makes America what it is. But we feel for what you guys are going through. It's heartbreaking to see the trauma that families are having to go through, and I can't thank you enough for spending time with us today, Marco. It means a lot. I hope you don't mind if I check back with you in a few weeks and we hear a little bit more of what the comeback starts to look like. So thank you very much for joining us.
So thanks for inviting me. Let's do this deal. I'll send you a message when we announce the day the lockdown will be over. So we'll give some positive news to everyone, okay?
That sounds great, Marco. Y'all take care and be safe.
Thank you. Take care. Stay safe. Ciao.